What up? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this show, we talk about how to raise money successfully when it comes to a crowdfunding campaign, when it comes to actually raising money from the crowd. How do you do that from a strategic standpoint? How do you do that when it comes down to the tactics? We discuss that and more on this show. And I haven't yet, go and check out some of the other archives we got out there because I have tons of guests who come on this show and really sharing what works for them when it comes to getting funding to their campaign. So getting people to actually show up, getting people to commit, getting people to, actually fund their campaign. And a lot of times this is something that's a passion project. A lot of times it's something that's starting a new business. I'd say quite frequently, this is something where, someone has been doing a certain type of work, maybe a 9-to-5 job, and working on something else on the side as well. And this can literally blow up when it comes to doing a crowdfunding campaign. They can end up quitting their job. They can end up doing this full time. We've had so many stories of people doing that. And also, people doing, 10 campaigns, 20 campaigns on Kickstarter, people taking their success when it comes there and then porting that over to Patreon, and then using subscription-based crowdfunding that way, and then having them do equity crowdfunding campaigns on WeFunder. So to me, the potential is quite large. And I think that when you get the process right, it can really work tremendously in your favor. But kind of one of the common questions that I get all the time is like, hey, Sal, okay, I understand what you're saying here when it comes to doing a campaign. However, can you really blow up in the way that you say? What if you don't have any kind of funds when it comes to even marketing this thing? And I think today is a great example of a guest, an interviewee who was able to actually raise over six figures, over $180,000 for more than 3,000 backers. And they were able to do this without a dime of marketing capital. And they'll tell you exactly what they did in order to actually kindle the fire, if you will, underneath this project in order to get the crowd resonating with their product, to get people wanting to buy this thing, want to pre-order it, want to own it like mad. And to me, the most important thing as well, taking away from this interview, is understanding why the creator did this. Because when you're going through some of those difficult times to start a new product and starting a business, sometimes you have to also have that meaning as well that kind of pulls you through those trenches when you are in the trenches of crowdfunding. So I think you're going to learn a lot on today's particular podcast episode when it comes to that, as well as if you're really trying to develop a product that stands out, something that people want to own, people want to buy or pre-order. I think today is going to be a particularly useful episode for you. So in addition, along with doing this podcast, I also do a YouTube channel. I also do other kinds of things when it comes to courses. I have books that are out there. And if you're trying to be successful on Kickstarter, I think one of the best things that you can do is upgrade your education, because this is a path that, it's taken me a long time to demystify, but I've really been able to get it down to a really couple of tactics and principles, which if you follow, you are virtually guaranteed to get funding. And it took a while to unearth these. And really, I think a lot of, as well, just being in the trenches and also having on so many incredible guests as well. And I want to share with you a resource that I think would be extremely valuable for you. And again, the reason is that the more you know the road ahead, the less scary it is, but also you can anticipate things, right? The more that you understand a process, the easier it gets to become a master of that process and really get the results that you want to. So if that sounds interesting to you, I have a great guide that's out there called the Kickstarter Launch Formula. And I've really just boiled this thing down into a complete formula that you can follow one piece at a time. And if you follow this step-by-step formula, it's going to unlock the potential and the power of crowdfunding. So that way you can get funding, you can get a rush of people checking you out, you can build an audience, you can get validation on your product idea. And I think most importantly, eventually you're going to get a product out there to the world that other people can use, other people can interact with in their daily life. It can solve problems that they have, and they can, of course, spread the word as well. So if you are going on this journey, right? If you are, let's just say you're a Jedi Knight, right? And you're going out there and trying to go on a quest and you're trying to really go through this journey, you can kind of think of this Kickstarter launch formula as almost a lightsaber, right? This is the guide, this is the tool, this is the weapon that you can use to really unlock the power of crowdfunding. So if you want to check this out, I'm going to include a link right now. You can go to this link and you can download actually the Audible version of the Kickstarter launch formula. And when you do that, you also, if you want to, you can get actually a free copy of this book if you sign up for a free 30-day trial of Audible. So really great promo that they're having. You can go and check this out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. So that link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. A lot of people love the audio version and the Audible version. I get tons of great reviews on that. And I think the reason is just because I bring my own passion when I'm reading this. I love to hype you guys up, but also deliver for you straight from the source, really tried and true information that you can use to apply to your campaign. So again, that link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast and learn how this entrepreneur, this creator is able to raise over $180,000 and attract more than 3,000 backers on Kickstarter. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. We have an exceptional project on today's podcast, having attracted more than 3,000 backers, over 100K, which has been raised. We have the man himself, the founder, on the show. This is for PenTips and PenMat, the extraordinary feeling on an iPad. Marc, welcome to the show.
Hi, Salvador. Thank you very much.
Definitely, man. Maybe you can kind of start by just telling the listeners a bit about this product and what you've created, what you've designed here.
Yeah, so this Kickstarter for us is a bit special, of course, as every Kickstarter is, but we launched two products in one. What we really tried to aim for as a company, the company name is PenTips, is to bring feeling to digital art. We've seen that there's a lot of demand for people who love traditional feeling, but they just can't get a feeling like that on the iPad. So we've been around now for around a year. We started off with PenTips 1. We used all that feedback to put it into number 2, which is, I think, partly why our Kickstarter was relatively successful. And we added the PenMat into this selection to really give a unique feeling when you're drawing and writing on iPad.
And what kind of led to the inspiration of this? Because this is just such a different way, I think, of thinking about art, right? And creativity, and also being able to have like that sensation. What really led to the inspiration?
I started off with me dropping my pencil. So I don't know. Do you have an Apple Pencil?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, you paid around $100 for it, right?
Yeah, it was a little while ago, but I mean, something like that.
Yeah, that's the price. So I dropped my pencil on the ground and it dropped on the tip. And so I was like, oh, I need to put some protection around the tip because now I have to buy a new Apple Pencil, and they're, like we just concluded, they're not necessarily the cheapest out there. So that was around a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I went looking for solutions on how to make a protective tip. But when I came across an alternative, because first I wanted to replace the entire tip, which fast forward 2 years, which we actually achieved. But in the beginning, that was going to be way too expensive of an endeavor. So we came up with something even simpler, which is basically a sock that you put over it. But when I started using it, I got more grip. Personally, I like to experiment with photography on the iPad, not taking pictures with the iPad, but importing it and then editing it, of course. And just the feeling and the sensation that it gave while you were working with it was quite unique. So I went to some iPad artists of mine, just friends of mine who drew on iPad, let them give a go, and they were like, oh, this is actually pretty nice. And that led to the core concept of PenTips.
And have you launched a product before, or was this your first product?
This is my second product on Kickstarter. Both are completely community-based. Most are, but in this case, for us, that means that we didn't spend any money on getting backers in terms of advertising. Usually you see it kind of supports each other. And in this case, it came all from our existing client base.
Wow. That's insane, man. That's very powerful. And also 3,000 people, right, taking action on this. I think this says a lot about the actual product. What were you doing before you were making products and doing campaigns?
So that's, before 2 years ago, I was a student. I was also working on startups on the side. I had a part-time job. A lot of fun stuff. Always trying to explore new things to build. Never really had a successful startup until now. I would say it did pretty well. And most of my time was spent either learning or working or playing some music.
And why were you so focused on that, do you feel? Or really trying to create your own thing? Why was that you feel like an obsessive focus for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really given it much thought other than now that you're asking the question, I can say that my dad was a dairy farmer. My family is a farming family, and that's also entrepreneurial. You build something on your own. It gave us the opportunity to move from France to the United States and now back to the Netherlands. So I've been able to go around as well. And I guess growing up with that was what laid the basis for me to one day start something on my own. But I knew it was going to be with technology.
So you had a bunch of different stuff that you tried, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they had varying levels of success, but it sounds like this has been the most successful so far. Why do you feel like that was? Do you feel like the other one just didn't click, or was this more you were passionate about? Why do you feel like this one was different?
Oh, definitely the click. I think what made this one particularly interesting for myself was it was a nice bridge between technology and art. I've played music since I was 5. I've been strumming and playing guitar, and then later added some songwriting skills to it, or at least I tried. But I've always been obsessed with computers and technology, and anything that would move bits around was pretty awesome. And then when Apple started releasing their products, and we kind of think of the iPod Classic, iPod Nano, iPod Touch, into the iPhone to where we are today. That was just exhilarating as someone who was 11 to 15, who grew up with these devices that were becoming ever more personal. And I guess now I had the opportunity to build something onto that for digital artists specifically. And that's just extremely exciting.
For you, being able to kind of marry technology and art, I definitely think is a rare thing because, art is so creative and kind of organic in that way, and technology is more like science and coding and that kind of stuff. Do you feel like for you, your focus is on the design? Is it on the marketing? Where's your role when it comes to the project?
And predominantly in product development. So I spend most of my time discussing internally with our engineers, crossing it over to our manufacturers and testing the products myself and communicating a lot with the customers. So I feel like I'm kind of in between all the strands and trying on the one hand to really listen to what the customers are telling me. And that's quite personal usually because for every order and everything that goes out, I send an email and asking for feedback. And with the types of orders that we do, you do get feedback. Some is great, some is things that we can improve on. But that personal communication really brings me to a position in which I can immediately see how we can put it in a product, and then working with the engineers to realize exceeding customer expectations that's kind of where I'm at.
So tell me about the moment before you really went live with this, right? You had already had one Kickstarter success and your brand is growing, right? You've been able to do a good job there. What was it like? What were you feeling the day before you went live with this campaign?
Exhilarated. I guess also relieved. This has been a extremely long product development process. We started in November or October of 2020. Like immediately when we started with PenTips as a company and putting PenTips 1 out on the market and selling that across the world, we started with PenTips 2. Because that was the reason we wanted to build this company, was for that product. And then in 18 months, so much more came about it, but it also took very long to perfect this product because you're working with very delicate materials and you're working with artists they have all kinds of different ways and techniques that they're using their pencil. You might notice it yourself. Sometimes you press a little bit harder than other times while trying to find materials that don't break when that happens, and doing that across now 3,000 customers, but over the last 18 months, 50,000 people. That makes it extremely difficult to get to the point where you're like, okay, we're confident we've got a product that we can finally put on Kickstarter. So when that day before we went live, we were like, okay, we can't believe it. We have to see if this actually is what the people are waiting for.
And you hit that button and you go live, and what happened next?
We celebrated that we were live and we watched the ticker roll. So how we got the whole team together and we kind of had like a small little cocktail pizza party kind of thing, just like to celebrate this milestone as a company. We premiered on YouTube first. So it was like 3 minutes to going live on Kickstarter. We premiered the launch video. That was kind of, I think, around 120 people were watching that with us. And once that was done, we clicked live and we saw people comment and we immediately answered on that. But we also saw the backers contributing to our campaign, which was amazing to say the least. And we just enjoyed our evening. And every time a comment or an email popped in, I would go to the computer and answer as quickly as possible. I think that's crucial, especially when you set up these types of campaigns. But just watching, you see the numbers going up and down. That's live. It's extremely exciting those first few hours.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's a huge validation too, right? Of all the time that you spent, of all the investment, of all the prototypes and all the iterations, you finally get to that moment, and then you have people that just come in, right? I imagine that's so incredibly rewarding to see that. So when it comes to this, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned here is the strength of community, right? And I feel like having a strong community is something easy to say, but to do it is a whole other thing. Do you have any thoughts on what really goes into building that kind of strength into your community?
You read it all the time, but it's listening And I guess in our case, having some type of affiliation for our customer, I wouldn't see affiliation in this sense, meaning like you need to have some kind of feeling with who your customer is. And in our case, it's digital creators in the broadest sense. Digital artists is probably, and illustrators is probably our broadest demographic, but we work with musicians, tattoo artists. We even work with the compositionists who work at Netflix, but also with designers that work at Pixar, to business people who use our pen tips to make quiet notes while they're traveling about. And trying to understand those customers the best you can is really what gives you the products that help you succeed in your campaigns.
When you do understand those customers and you're listening to them, what is sort of the next action there? Is it that's what informs your communication? Is it that's what you ask questions or surveys with? Is that talking about, who this is for? How do you use that information that you gather?
Yeah, I would almost cross off everything you just suggested as in like positive sense, because the way that the customers talk about your products is also the way it resonates mostly with the people who you're targeting or who you're trying to advertise to. So we almost quite literally would use word for word what people and how they describe our products. We would use it back in our website, in our blogs, in our advertisements, in our videos that we put on YouTube, because that's when we know we resonate best. So that's just the copywriting and storytelling sense of it, speaking the lingo of the customer. And when it comes to who that customer is, you just ask, like, hey, what's your profession, or how do you do this as a hobby? And you try to represent these different types of talents and communities best in the marketing that you put forward, and also the storytelling around how your brand helps these individuals.
So it kind of sounds like when you are creating a product, that's great. But when you're really creating a product with someone or for someone, that's kind of when it seems to click a little bit more. Would you say that's right?
Yes, there's different ideas that people build products around, and listening to your customer is one. The second one is also like you're fulfilling a need. And in this case, people have been looking for something like pen tips since the Apple Pencil came out in 2015, I believe. After starting marketing a little bit and working with more customers, I went back in forums and you could actually see that I was like, why is this working? So you start looking up and talking to customers, but you find forums from 2016, 2015, where people are like, yeah, this is what we needed. Why is nobody making this? Well, it took a few years, but we're here.
You heard the sirens calling. Yeah, you
Yeah,
definitely heard that. Well, so you've been obviously active on a few different channels, right? On YouTube, you got a site. What marketing channel do you feel like has been most powerful when it comes to, the audience or getting the word out about this? What do you feel like has been most powerful for you?
Interestingly enough, Instagram. I find it interesting because you would think that maybe DeviantArt, I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's a pretty big art platform. Perhaps Pinterest, which is used for inspiration, or Twitter, which a bunch of digital artists just collaborate with each other, would be most promising. But Instagram is by far the best platform to work and find digital artists.
And I can imagine too with Reels, like that's obviously something that's going huge recently. Just putting out content, people can actually see what you're doing, right? They can see iterations, they can see the product, so it can kind of connect in a different way. They can DM you, so I could definitely see that for sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to getting this campaign out there and getting launched, there's a lot of stuff you can do. What do you feel like for you has really led to the growth or the success of the campaign aside from just your community? Have you done any other kinds of like marketing on your own, or have people from the community themselves on Kickstarter noticed you? What do you feel like has, aside from your community, been a factor of your success?
Yeah, we sent out about 8 emails in a span of 30 days specifically about this campaign. We start off with, hey, within a week, we're going to be launching this. Sign up now. And so we try to get when you launch a Kickstarter campaign, you have this like pre-live page. I don't know what they call it. Maybe you know?
Coming soon, right?
Yeah.
The coming soon page?
Exactly. Yeah, that's where people can follow your product. And we just wanted to see if we can get that on a certain target for us. That was around 1,000 people. We were like, if we could do 1,000 people, we got a really strong start. That would be amazing. It ended up being somewhere around 3,000 people, I guess, that were signed up and followed within the first week. Yeah, it's like, woo, we did it. We made it. So yes, trying to put traffic, like specifically marketing, using an email or two to generate traffic towards your coming soon now. Because yeah, as soon as you go live, Kickstarter sends out the email and most people have the app on their phone. So they also get the notification. It's probably the most direct way and easiest way. Plus, for sure that the people have Kickstarter. That right there, we thought would also be a reason why we would want people to come on the coming soon page. And then during the campaign, reminding people that we exist, showing reviews that came in. Oh yeah, maybe that's for the next part. But yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I mean, that's great, having social proof, right? Being able to show that people like your product. Like I imagine that generates a ton of trust for people who are on the fence, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing I noticed is that you guys have a Discord group. How did that go for you?
That was very fun and still fun. So if you're not in it already, please join, listener or you, Salvador. But yeah, no, that's fantastic. So we have a few groups in there where we share memes, art memes. We share each other's pieces. We give tips and tricks. I think there's around 70 people in there right now. And it's nice to talk to customers that personally and directly. Sometimes we host live events, or you can just send me a personal message, or we can do live calls like we are doing this one to just to talk to each other. And that makes the gap between the customer and the brand much smaller and much more human, which I find very important these days.
Yeah, and they kind of get to know you, I guess, on a different way. And you get to interact and, have discussion. They realize you're also, like you said, that affiliation, right? Have more affiliation with the customer.
Yeah.
One other question I had for you is that, I think a lot of products sometimes are things that we like really want. Like they're just super cool. Do you feel like for you, this has been something where people feel like they need it? Is it they feel like they want it and they're just like, this is so cool? What do you feel like is really the motivations behind wanting to back this? Because you're not going to get it for a while, right?
Yeah. So we're going to ship out in September. Everything is still en route for getting there. It's a pretty big step for us as a company because, we've been kind of hanging in this startup phase for the last 2 years. And now we're getting everything ready for stores. There are a lot of stores that are now knocking on our doors that would like our products there. And so that means you need barcodes, for example, you need retail packaging, you need all the disclaimers in the boxes or on somewhere. We had to get all this ready. That's why it's taken a bit longer than we expected. Plus, it's a lot of tips that we have to make now, around 15,000 tips. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. So for you, do you feel like people are really resonating because they want this? They see the design, they see how beautiful it is. Like, this is super cool. I got to have this. Or is it more functional and like problem solution based, do you feel?
Yeah, it's right now, and it has been primarily in base. I think now we're kind of on the verge to it becoming a product that people really want, and that we have fulfilled the people's wishes for, please make something like this. And now people who did not know something like this existed, but they see because of others' reviews that it could definitely help them bring more confidence in their work.
Very cool. Very cool. One other question I had for you on the kind of the story aspect is, you talked a little bit about your family, right? And them kind of being in business and you getting to business now. And now you have this product which is growing and you have people that are loving it. For you, what has been the most rewarding aspect of that journey?
Building something with this incredible team that we get to. Yeah, we've got a lot of great people that I get to work with on a daily basis. That makes it a lot of fun. People who care about what we do, backgrounds in arts. That's how we hire people as well. Just like if you don't have a background in any sort of artistic anything, then there's a fair chance that we won't proceed. And that just gives this very nice, here's the word of the year vibe to how we operate as a company. So being able to work with a fantastic team is probably the most fulfilling.
And what does that mean for you? Is that kind of about the art that I guess you get to make in the world? Or is that enabling other artists to do their best work? Why do you feel like that's meaningful to you?
Art is probably the most human-like expression of being human. I don't think I said that correctly, but I think art is quite a profound something. I don't know how to describe it, but people who create with no intention to necessarily commercialize it, or they create purely for the enjoyment of it because that's how they express themselves. I find that quite fun people to work with. Yeah, that I don't know exactly how to explain it. It's just a very nice feeling that you get when you are able to see that other people enjoy what they create. I mean, if you've ever spent time with someone who's creating an artwork or perhaps making a music piece or even singing, like you could find YouTube videos of people singing their favorite songs. And there's just a lot of emotion that goes into it. And if people can really put themselves into a position where they just release themselves through any type of those mediums, I find that I admire that. And that's the type of people I would like to work with.
Would you say that's when you feel most alive?
I think that's a great way of saying it. Absolutely. If that's epitome of being human, then I would completely agree with you.
That's so interesting because it sounds like a lot of the other, businesses that you've had and startups, and I don't know, But it sounds like this one not only kind of hit the product demand, supply kind of equation, but it also really struck a chord with something that you deeply believe in, right? Which is being able to help other people experience this incredible, release or this incredible creativity which you've been able to experience. And it allows you to then work with those people. It allows you to help those people. And it kind of just creates more cool stuff, right, in the world.
Exactly. In that sense, I get to create alongside them, whether it's on my like hobby wise, making music or creating products that help them. And that's, genuinely a lot of fun.
Super cool, man. So I just got a couple more questions for you. So one is, I think that this intention that you have, right, to empower artists and also your own art, I think it's super noble, but I think a lot of people as well get stuck. So people that are listening to the show, it's like, I know, like this guy, he's done incredible. And like he also has this artistic bent. A lot of artists have difficulty with putting one foot in front of the other and kind of doing more of success and really achieving and like hitting milestones and that kind of stuff. Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of like, turning your art into something that's you can then produce and share with the world and create projects around, right? Or getting a little bit more serious or scientific about it. Do you have any thoughts on that and like how you've been able to navigate that?
Yeah, at a certain point, you do have to commercialize your ideas. If that's anything that I've learned from my studies, is that's the premise of building new things or innovating, because that was my degree. It's like, ideas is artistic in itself because it's something that comes from you. You come up with it for a reason. And if it's something that you really stand behind, then it's going to be really easy to build it compared to if you don't support your own ideas, of course. But commercializing it is probably the most difficult part of it because anybody can come up with ideas. Anybody can come up with a song. Anybody creates something on Procreate, for example. At least you can doodle something and you can call it art, but then making living out of that is extremely difficult. What I would advise in most cases, and that's how I did it, at least that's the best way I can then say it, is that you do find something to do on the side. It might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it sure does give you that backing of, hey, I'm gaining experience. By on the side, I mean a part-time job that is somewhat artistic. You could think of copywriting. Marketing is artistic. Coding is also artistic because you're constantly trying to create solutions for problems that didn't exist before. In that sense, a lot of things, even financial accounting is artistic. But then the idea of it is that you do something on the side. It supports your other few spare days that you have in a week and enables you to just create when you aren't necessarily earning money in that sense. And you're buying the time to be able to invest in yourself and then eventually get to a point where you would be able to commercialize it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It allows you as well to continue to dabble in what you like doing while also earning income, right? So I think that makes definitely a lot of sense and being mindful of that. One question I had on the product side is just looking through your video and looking through your images and looking through all the different things that you have here, like it really builds the value of the product intensely. When you're thinking about planning this, like you're planning your project, do you have any approaches to doing that? Like, are you using Excel or using a project management tool? How do you really create more organization from all that chaos?
Trello.
Trello.
Trello, the infamous Trello. Yeah, we have one card. It's called Kickstarter. We don't put everything, we don't have a separate board for Kickstarter. That could have been a smart idea though. But we put everything into one card and we have our Google Drive link to it. And we have our entire agenda, to-do list, task lists for everybody who's involved put into this one central space where we organize it from. But what I do find is that you can start planning things, but most of the time then you don't really have an idea where you want to work towards. So in that sense, you just grab a sheet of paper and you think of the different channels, how you're going to approach people. In our case, that was our own social media channels. Yeah, that was it. And our LinkedIn pages personally. But that means we have to design and come up with posts for our social media channels. We have to design and think about how we're going to do the email flow. When are we going to introduce certain things so that we can create anticipation? And then last but definitely not least, you have your Kickstarter page. And the best thing that at least I thought it was a good idea is just to look at the most successful campaigns on Kickstarter and base your description and their layout on theirs. Like the most successful Kickstarters, they have elements that in each of them. That first being, of course, the introduction and giving a feeling for why this product or why you're introducing this. The second, of course, the product itself. So bigger picture, product itself, include the technical specification, make it clear what the rewards are, have things ready like press kit and all the social media channels so that people can reach out to you, and add a timeline at the end of it, which shows how long you've been working on it and how you plan on working towards it in the future. And then once you have the product live, and preferably even earlier, you would be able to add some user-generated content in the midst of it. But drawing that out on a piece of paper and then filling it in, the filling it in part is the one that you plan.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And that's also very visual. And I think anyone can do that. So I really appreciate that tip. My final question for you is, were there any surprises that you've had throughout either this campaign or your previous one that you feel like you could share with the audience? Because I think a lot of times we think it's so calculated, but like really it's kind of like ready, fire, aim, right? A lot of the time. Do you have any surprises or things that kind of do throughout the process?
The types of questions that customer asks, you can't really anticipate that ever. So they could come up with craziest questions that makes complete sense once you start reading it, and being ready to have answers on that and quickly as well, because you don't want people waiting a couple of days for an answer. That's just, Kickstarter is very too community focused to allow such a delay. And surprise in fulfilling orders, because once the Kickstarter is done, you have to ship the products. You can't just take the money and run. Although there are people who have done that.
Yeah. Did you have any particular surprises on that front?
And the first time we sent out 2 surveys, and that was kind of confusing. So what we did is, since we shipped all of our products in the last 2 years from inside of our own offices here in the Netherlands, we have our internal shipping system built. And integrating that was kind of a mess last time we did it. PenPad, our shortcut panel for Procreate, which we launched in November. And then this time we were a bit more prepared. So today we sent out the backer forms and we collect people's responses. That is one part. And then getting all the products in and organizing the products to be put in the boxes, which also have to be designed, making sure that the barcodes are on the right place, because you don't want it just anywhere. You want it in a certain location. That way, otherwise it distracts, of course. Getting that in, paying import fees for this as well, making sure it arrives in the office at a timely manner, and then repacking it and sending it back out. That's something I hope in the next Kickstarter we optimize a bit, but this is the best we could do, and also to guarantee a certain quality towards our customers.
Always improving, always improving. Awesome, man. Where can people go to learn more about your company? Where can they go to learn more about the project? Where should they check out online?
www.pen.tips or PenTips.com. That also works.
Okay, pen.tips.
Yeah.
Be sure to include that link in the description. Great. Well, appreciate you so much for coming on. And I'll let you have the last word here, which is, if you want to speak directly to the audience, and you can end either with a final quote that you like, it could be a word of encouragement, it could be a final tip, it could be something that you wish you knew, or it could be sharing something that you feel like the audience should hear, and we can end on that note.
Yeah, we have 2 mantras here in the office. At least that's what we build around. The first one is keep creating, so will we. And the second one is the world is your canvas.
So cool. I love that, man. Thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you again, Salvador.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Now, if you've been listening to this episode, first of all, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time doing that and investing in yourself, and really spending the time, putting time aside to be able to upgrade your education, to be able to understand what you got to do step by step in order to unlock the power of the crowd, in order to get your project funded, certainly, but also I think to resonate with people larger than just the people that are around you. Like, if you're trying to launch this and you get your friends and family involved, like that's great. But really at the end of the day, the name of the game is, how do you actually get strangers to take action? How do you get strangers to care? How do you get them to back your campaign? How do you get them to buy your products? How do you get them to support your mission? Whatever it is that you're trying to do. You might be doing a physical product, you might be doing something more nonprofit related, you might be doing a board game, something more creative, a publishing project, whatever it is. You got to get people to get their attention, got to get them to care, and of course, you got to get them to take action. I hope that you took away a couple of tips related to that on today's podcast interview. If in addition, if you have not yet, definitely go and check out some of the other episodes I got out there. Please leave me a positive rating and review on iTunes. And also, if you haven't yet, man, you got to hop on the Killer Crowdfunding Tips newsletter. This newsletter is golden. I share nuggets of gold every single week for free. This is just tons of value delivered straight to your inbox. So if that sounds interesting, this is completely free. Just go to this link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/newsletter. That link is crowdcrux.com/newsletter, crowdcrux.com/newsletter. Go there and you can sign up for my killer crowdfunding tips newsletter, and you will start getting some weekly emails from me, just kind of keeping you on the cutting edge, man. I'm trying to keep you on the cutting edge. I'm kind of trying to make it so that when you're actually doing one of these campaigns, you're using techniques and strategies that actually work to get you funds. And that's one of the best ways to keep your fingers on the pulse when it comes to crowdfunding. The other big thing that I have to talk with you with here is that when it comes to doing these different campaigns, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of things that you don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I'd say that one of the most important things when it comes to going through a new process is really valuing that. Valuing the fact that this is something that you're going to have to go through. This is a journey, right? When you're going through any kind of a journey, there are uphills and there are downhills, and there are obstacles that you don't even know. And there are demons, and there are lizards and Godzilla-like creatures that you sometimes have to slay, right? Obstacles that you have to go through while you're going and you're kind of trying to hunt it for that buried treasure. But you know it's there. And when you have a map, a guide, if you will, when it comes to the Kickstarter launch formula, that's obviously so much easier to get there. But it's also easier when you actually have a guide in person who can kind of help you navigate this terrain, who can help you understand what you got to do next, can really keep you focused, can make it sure that when you're coming to them, it's like, oh, I'm trying to do this and this. And all of a sudden you realize that maybe some of the things you were trying to do, some of the techniques you're trying to use are outdated, or some of the things that you're actually using are not great for your category or for your product. Or even being aware, is crowdfunding even something that I want to do in the first place? So that's why I make myself available on a limited basis when it comes to my one-on-one coaching calls. These are intensive coaching calls where you basically come in, you've obviously done a little bit of research already, and really we kind of dissect your entire strategy as it goes into this crowdfunding campaign, understanding what you got to do next, understanding, first of all, I'd say, and giving you feedback on what you've done so far, and really getting a clear sense of what has to happen in order to get the results that you are looking for, as well as kind of, I'd say digging into this massive library of information that I have in my head of having worked with so many different creators over the years, having seen so many different campaigns, seeing what works, what doesn't, and you get all that delivered straight to you in a personalized one-on-one coaching call. So to me, aside from the Kickstarter launch formula, I think this is one of the best investments that you can make. Very frequently, as a result of doing these calls, I have students saying that I literally blew their mind and they go on a completely different strategy that they never even thought was possible. They end up raising 6 or 7 figures with their campaign. I've had many people end up going into my long-term coaching programs. I've had many people do multiple coaching programs with me with multiple campaigns, and even invest in other things like my courses and my products. And in some cases, even if you have a big enough budget, being able to hire when it comes to execution help. So there's a lot of different things when it comes to this. And I'd say that the number one thing is just making sure that you are investing in yourself, that you're prepared, and that you understand what you got to do to get the results that you want to in life. If you're trying to do something, you're trying to learn a new skill. Let's just say you're trying to learn how to play golf, you're probably going to hire a pro. If you're going to try to learn how to play tennis, you're going to learn from some guy who already has that experience and already has that know-how, can teach you about the different strokes, teach you about the gameplay, teach you about the strategy. I remember when I was first getting started, man, and I was playing chess when I was a lot younger, and I started to actually learn about strategic gameplay with the game of chess. My skills started to skyrocket. I started to beat people who were way smarter than I was, simply because I knew and I understood chess gameplay and chess strategy. So you got to become a student of the game. So if you want to check out the link when it comes to my one-on-one coaching calls, you can go to this link I'm about to mention. You can book a one-on-one coaching call with me. This link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. Crowdcrux.com/coaching will take you there. Fill out a little bit of information and we can get that call scheduled ASAP. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Salvador and I will see you next time.